Hi folks, wanted to check in with you today on June 2, and kind of just in light of the national and in some ways international events of the last several days. Teachers have been asked to provide some information to students, and so this is about the current events in the United States that grown-ups are paying attention to and the world is paying attention to, and in an effort to include students in that conversation and understanding, teachers have been asked to have a conversation with students. Check with your families whether this is all right for you to take a look at right now. You might want to look at it later after you speak with them. The first part, I think, is to understand the circumstances of some of the events that have happened in the last few days. And I think the first step for that is for you to have a conversation with your families before my video here, or definitely afterwards, and to hear some of your family's beliefs and opinions and thoughts as they know information and as they see information as presented on the news. And so, yeah, I would say check with those. I sent an email to your families telling them about this video today, and so hopefully when you're watching now, your family has had some communication with you. Okay, and so circumstances are, across the United States, there are people in cities who are protesting the treatment of an African-American man last week in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Those are cities, twin cities, in the state of Minnesota in the United States of America. He was treated unfairly by everyone's belief system and unequally by everyone's belief system than other people who we believe would have a different skin color than him. And so the kind of things to talk about that I'll be mentioning today are equal treatment and protest and how they work and are ways for our nation to step forward. So that's where we are. That was the circumstances. He was treated unfairly and unkindly by a police officer and the police officer's companions. That's the information and the facts that people know about and can see on some videos that were posted last week. Some people saw that he was being treated unfairly and picked up their cameras and phones to film the treatment, which has been very valuable for people to see the seriousness of what happened to him. He was treated unfairly, and again, people believe that's because of the color of his skin and how it was handled by a white police officer, of course with my skin color, who was arresting him, and it was during that arrest that the problems occurred. Later, this man, his name is George Floyd, died, and that, by many people's opinions, was unnecessary and very unfortunate and angered people. It made some people very upset, some people very sad, some people very angry, and a bunch of other feelings. A response to that, what people say is a regrettable death, because it did not need to happen, is people in different cities, and they started in Minneapolis, was to have a protest about his unequal treatment by that police officer than it would be if it was someone with my skin color. And so a protest is a response back to an event or an incident. And people protest by saying things or by going to a place. They might hold signs that sends a message that they wish to say for people to see and hear. And so we have the right to speak our minds. Freedom of speech is a freedom that's guaranteed in our Constitution, one of the documents that helped build our country. The document has a system in it to create our nation. And so freedom of speech is the First Amendment right, and so people have the right to come and create a conversation, a discussion, or protest. And so in Minneapolis, people who felt strongly in their hearts and in their heads about the treatment of George Floyd organized and gathered and marched. So they just, it's kind of, when you think about a big march, if you have not been to one of those, it's like everyone at Bryant suddenly coming together and walking together. Not in lines, but just a group of people. Sometimes protests can be one person standing somewhere with a sign, or it could be 5 or 10 or 50 or hundreds. Sometimes they can reach thousands, sometimes even millions. Hundreds and thousands of people participated in various protests around the nation. It started in Minneapolis, where this story originally occurred, but people in other cities, like people who live in Seattle or New York or Memphis or Miami, live in different cities, felt strongly about the unequal treatment of George Floyd and had protests in other cities to show that it was not just his town, but it was our towns who felt strongly about this. And that is what happened around the nation. Starting, I think the first one was Thursday or Friday night. And so when you have a protest like that, anyone can come. And so your family might have been to protests before, when people argue about how something is done or how a law is going into place, or when announcements are made. A way to respond to that is to protest. Some people write letters to protest. Some people make phone calls to protest. Some people show up in person, and that showing and community feeling helps people feel stronger and better. It sends a message to the people who the protesters want to hear the message by looking at the number of people who think the same way. So anyone can come to a protest. Most people in the United States believe in a peaceful protest, so it's the gathering of all those people together, feeling and thinking similarly or the same about something. Anyone can come to those. And the protesters, for the most part, are all people who are like us and peaceful and want to send a message. That's what happens during a protest. The change, and the part that bothers people and makes people uncomfortable, sad, angry, wishful that it was different, anyone can come. But not everyone who comes is there for the same reason as the organizers who set up the protest, to argue about that man's treatment. And so, at the protests in Seattle, as well as in other nations, other cities around the nation, other people came. And kind of a word to describe their behavior and their thinking is disruptive, destructive troublemakers. They are not the people who the protesters planned on coming. These troublemakers created trouble. Disruptive means that they kind of blocked the flow. They did not let the peaceful protesters just move forward. They said mean things. They did mean things, like throwing things at police officers. They blocked some of the protesters from going down the streets they were supposed to go down. They were disruptive. They were not part of the original plan. They were destructive. I said 3 words: disruptive, destructive, and troublemakers. When you think about destructive, stuff gets ruined. And that's what the troublemakers did. They ruined property. They destroyed in some cases some property. They stole some things. They ruined things like, breaking windows and spray painting messages on statues and important buildings. And that created a problem, and that led to more problems because then the police had to come and try to get them to stop and to protect the people who were exercising their freedom of speech right by just simply protesting and marching. So it's been a really problematic several days in our country. And we feel, teachers, I feel, concerned about our country and worried about people's safety and the whole health issue, pandemic, and what people are looking at in our country and around the world and thinking this is our nation, and students, young people, seeing or hearing about these strange situations and being worried about them. So grown-ups are concerned and worried and very bothered by this. I am. I would bet your parents are as well. So what I simply tried to do today was to state the facts as I know them. I think the important piece is to talk with your family and have some conversations with them about the protests. That's how you can start it, kind of like with our school closure conversations, is to leave this video and then to say, I'd like to talk with you, Dad or Mom or both, about the protests. And so if you've seen some of that, then you already know some of the information. But talking it through with an adult is really critical. There's lots more I can say, but I think the place right now is for you to have a family conversation around this, and then know that I'm thinking about you and concerned. And if I were to be asked my feelings, I would say sad is the first feeling I have because of the troubles our nation is experiencing right now. And this leads an opportunity for growth and healing, but until then it leads an opportunity for people to feel uncomfortable or upset, worried, or unsafe. And so, it's just an uncomfortable time. It already was with the health issue, and this just adds more to it. So I wore this shirt on in particular on today. It's a shirt that matters to me. It's a design. On the design is rainbow colors, and the word is proud. And I specifically chose it for this video today, though there are emotions that I struggle with about our nation right now, and worry in lots of ways. If I go way down deep, I just think about our nation has many great people in it, and I'm counting on them and myself to rise forward and to help move us ahead in ways that we can grow from these uncomfortable moments into being better than we were before. Yeah. So I'm going to hold that. I'll see you tomorrow.